Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, let's jump straight in. Let me share the Bhagavad Gita review. Screen. Okay, I was just appreciating yesterday actually how it's so nice just to go over every verse and try to understand each verse as well, and how it's connected to the previous verse and how it's relevant to the next verse, and get the right context and try and understand together the message that Krishna is giving Arjuna and consequently us. It's wonderful to do. And we are making progress on the 5th chapter. The 5th chapter is this one of perhaps the 12th chapter. 5th chapter and the 12th chapters are the smallest chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 5, there's 29 verses, which is relatively small compared definitely to the 2nd chapter and the 18th chapter, which is over 70 verses. So I'm just saying, before we know it, before you know it, before we know it, we'll be on chapter 18. And then what shall we do when we finish chapter 18? Go back to Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. Let's see. Krishna has in store. All right, so as usual, if devotees could volunteer to read, Mahalavanga has a hand up raised. I think it's Mahalavanga.
Yeah, your sound suddenly improved for a moment there.
One moment. Okay, something happened. I'm not too sure. But
something happened and it got really good, and now it's back to a bit muffled.
I didn't do anything different.
I don't know.
Anyway, if you can't hear me at all, then
don't know. Okay, text 5.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Text 12, chapter 5. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva santim apnoti naishvikam ayukta kama karena phaleshakto nipadyate. Translation. So I'm reading from the computer.
Sorry.
Yeah. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that the former is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the results of his activities. The person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person, and he has no anxiety over the results of his work. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality, that is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, there is no duality. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effect. One is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness. But one who is entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness.
Okay, thank you. So, just to begin with, everyone likes secrets, isn't it? Someone says, I want to tell you a secret, then your ears perk up. So Prabhupada, and more than one time he explains certain aspects of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness as a secret. So he says, this is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization there is no existence besides Krishna. It's a platform of peace and fearlessness. So that's what he means by there's no duality. Because everything is manifestation of Krishna's energy, etc. So, anyway, so any particular comments or questions here? You can hear me, I hope. Yes. Can you hear me clearly? Clearly enough?
No, not really. It's really like distant.
Yeah, let me get closer. Let me try.
It is really hard to understand what you're saying. In fact, I can't understand what you're saying at all.
Okay, let me have a fiddle around with a few things
If you
here.
come near, probably come near.
No, I think it
Or
might be.
just move it. Maybe just move the computer slightly.
Yeah,
It might work.
1 second. So what about now?
Say something.
Yeah, I am saying something, but you can't hear me.
No.
It's really hard to. I've got mine full, and I'm right next to the computer. And okay. Anyway, we can.
Let me try. What about now?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
That's better?
Yeah, 100% better.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead with that. I took my, what I call these iPods out. I'm going with the computer. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's just check the chat. There's three things.
Yeah,
Just thumbs up in the chat. Becoming a bit better. Okay, nothing. All right. Any particular questions here, or could we say summaries we can give? There's two words that Krishna is using here, which are similar but different: yukta and ayukta. As you know in Sanskrit, yukta is a positive tense in a positive sense, and when it comes with an a before it, it's the same but in a negative sense. So yukta and ayukta. Yeah. So Krishna's comparing the unattached worker to the attached worker. Yeah. Describes here. Yeah. So in other words, a person, the same actions can liberate one, or can be the cause of one's further bondage. So specifically in relationship to Arjuna, obviously, Arjuna is going to be engaged in warfare. So by doing it in Krishna consciousness, it's going to be a cause of his liberation. But if not, it will be a cause of his bondage. So the same can be translated in our life, in our particular work, in our field of activity. To that degree, we are Krishna conscious, and Prabhupada highlights that in the purple. To that degree, our actions will be liberating. Yeah. And will release us from material existence. So how can, for instance, let's think of a typical job some of you might have. Working, what type of jobs do devotees have out here? Dhananjaya Prabhu, what type of job do you have? Can't hear me.
He's muted and probably not yet.
What about
sorry.
yes. What type of job do you have? What's your occupation?
It's in tech, information technology.
Okay, that's a surprise. Everyone does that. Information technology. It's the information.
So it's more of like, building solution based on programs, computer programs.
So Krishna is explaining how someone engaged in information technology, his work can free him from material existence. This is what Krishna is explaining here. Yeah. So
Sure.
yeah, and it's based on a certain principle that Krishna has been mentioning, and that's Nishkam Karma Yoga. So doing one's work, doing one's duty
but without attachment to the results. Yeah. Just looking at some notes here. So therefore, one is equipoised. And also if one is unmotivated by material desire. Now, it's interesting because we're working to maintain ourselves. So you could say, isn't that you're working, that's a material desire? Yes, it is. But we have our boundaries. We have to live and we have to exist. That's what Krishna says earlier on, that everyone has to work, otherwise one will starve. So, but when we're speaking about working without material desire, it means that we're not materialists. Our goal is Param Gati, is actually Krishna. So that's our real desire. But to live in this world, we have to have a situation. We have to have a house or a flat. Most people live in flats these days, isn't it? You're lucky if you live in a house. Most people live in flats. So that's not outside of the realm of pure devotion. Yeah? Am I making sense here?
Yes.
So so we're not trying to keep up with we have the English saying, I don't know if to keep up with the Joneses, You know that saying, keep up the Joneses? Just like there's two next door neighbors, and one next door neighbor, one of them builds an extension. So the wife tells the husband, well, why don't we get an extension? Anyway, you get the idea. So that's how to be mentioned. This karma yoga mentality helps one to be equipoised and peaceful. Yeah, because our goal is not material. You follow? Because if our goal is material, and the material world is quite an unreliable place, it's a chanchala. So it's subject to the three modes of material nature. Anything can happen. You could lose your job next week, And if that's our only desire in life, then obviously we're not going to be equipoised. Yeah. But someone who is Krishna conscious, even if they do lose their job, no doubt there will be some anxiety, but underlying, they have this faith in Krishna. Naturally, there will be some concern. Well, there might not be, actually. Some devotees, Jai, Krishna's mercy, I've not got a job. Anyway, it depends on your situation. Sorry, I'm going on a bit here. Anything else on this? Let's look here.
One reflection I would like to add.
Please, again, Dhananjay, if you can speak a bit closer to the mic, and it's always a little bit bit louder.
Is it better now?
That's better, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to add one more reflection to what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Along with having faith in Krishna, it is also, for me, my take on it is also important to have self-belief.
To have, say that again,
Self-belief.
Self-belief, no, confidence, you mean, in one's self. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So that way, both go hand in hand. So if we only, if this is my personal reflection, whatever I have come to realize, my current state of realization is that along with depending on Krishna, it is also important to have self-belief, and that's how one will be able to give 100% to what he is endeavoring for.
Yeah, there's one statement, I can't quite think how it goes, but someone might help me. One should uh, one should act in such a way that everything depends on, I forget it now. I better look
Yeah, you should act in a way that everything depends on you,
on.
but know that everything depends on Krishna.
Yeah, very good. That's it. Yeah. Act in such a way that everything depends on you, but at the same time, you should be cushioned with the understanding that ultimately everything depends upon Krishna. Yeah. And also in
Mata, very
readings,
very nicely put, Mata. Thank you. Thank you,
yeah,
Mata.
yeah, it's a very good statement, isn't it? And actually, I mean, in my readings of Mahabharata, it often comes up about the that laziness is never glorified in scripture. Yeah, we should always act very well in doing our duties. Foster procrastination. So it's not like, yeah, I'm just expanding on his point. It's not like Krishna's expecting Arjuna to sit on the chariot. Okay, you're the doer, then you just do everything. No, yeah, so good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Dhananjay. Yeah. So anybody
It's
else?
like
Any points here? Yes.
it's like, we have to endeavor and wait for Krishna's mercy. It's like when Yashodama is binding Krishna, endeavor and mercy, 2 fingers.
Yes, very good point. This in of itself is quite a philosophical discussion within Christianity. Was it grace or works? Is it by works you obtain God, or is it by grace? Yeah, our understanding it's both. God helps those, and what comes next? Who?
Help
Help
themselves.
themselves.
Themselves. Yeah. So interesting dynamic. Yeah. So important point to remember, especially in regards to working in this world. Yeah, here is also Nimai Mata writes, do your very best and leave the rest to Krishna. Yeah, that's another nice similar aphorism saying the same thing. So you got that? It's in the chat, you can see. Do your very best and leave the rest to Krishna. Because our best won't be enough without Krishna's grace. Yeah. And if we do that, we can do amazing things that will amaze even ourselves, because Krishna will empower us. All right, so
We have to do our duties in this material world, don't we? So
yeah, that's the message we're getting very clear, that you get very clear from Bhagavad Gita. Very clearly that comes across. Yes.
you can't just sit back and say, okay, I will leave it to Krishna. I am just sitting here doing nothing.
No, and if we do that, then we will not be happy. There's a verse that is similar. I can't think of it exactly, but Bhagavad Gita describes that we will not be. We have to endeavor, just like Prabhupada endeavored very, very kind of with great determination to spread Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, he was dependent upon Krishna. Yeah, just to get to America. If anyone's read the story in the Rita, Prabhupada for years was planning coming to America and speaking to so many people and desiring it very intensely and preparing for it. Yeah, he didn't just sit back in Vrindavan and wait for someone to come and give him a ticket. Oh, here's a ticket, Swamiji, to the United States. No. Yeah.
Also, when we are endeavoring for achieving something, I also think that one should also be aggressive enough to just go and get it. Definitely, everything remains on Krishna. It happens on, everything happens on his will, but one should be very aggressive if one has decided to do and go ahead with something. One should go and get it and give the best effort.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not too sure of. I'm not perhaps the word be very
Ag-
aggressive. For at least for me, it has certain connotations, which kind of is a bit like the mode of passion. Someone, perhaps another word, we should be very, very enthusiastic would perhaps be a better word. Aggressive has kind of like you're causing physical harm to someone. You're very aggressive, you're very attached. So it has to be balanced. We have to be balanced, knowing this, that we do our best and leave the rest to Krishna. Yeah, Midday Mata mentions determined and enthusiastic. You could use aggressive if you want, but that word has, at least from my upbringing,
Yes,
has a
Prabhu.
certain connotation about it.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Enthusiastic is much better and determined.
yeah. Yeah. And here's something from Ramanujacharya for your interest in this verse, short thing. Yukta, he says, means united. As you know, yukta, let's go back to the yukta, one who's engaged in devotional service. The word is connection, yeah? So Prabhupada translated it in this devotional way. One who's engaged, so one who's connected with devotional service. So one who is united with renunciation, not wanting any reward other than realization of the Atma, of the soul. So that, so we work in this world and we endeavor in this world, but our greatest desire is to be Krishna conscious. Yeah, that oversees everything. More than getting a house on the hill, whatever it may be, or getting a PhD. Actually, we want Krishna. Yeah? And ayukta, he mentions, not united with renunciation. So that leads to degradation. Yeah, one's work will generally lead to bondage. Yeah. So therefore, it also mentions one is then subject, instead of being equipoised, one is incited by cravings, lustfully desires results and rewards, and becomes very aggressive, if you want, becomes very angry if there's no reward. One's very attached. Just this graphic picture comes to my mind. This was one of my services for the temple one time was to go to the suppliers, the wholesale suppliers once a week for the restaurant. So I was driving, and we arrived at the wholesale place early, about 10 minutes early. So we was waiting outside in the van, and the door to the entrance, there was about 3 or 4 men were waiting there. Of course, they're businessmen. They're there early because they want to get their stuff and open the shop. And it hit the time, I think it was like 6 o'clock. And it was 6 o'clock and the door didn't open at 6 o'clock. So the man immediately by the door started kicking the door. Started banging on the door and kicking the door. And the door was nearly coming off its hooks. He was so wound up that he couldn't wait another minute or so before imagine what the poor guy behind the door was probably scared to open the door. But anyway, the point is I felt very, for a few seconds I felt a little bit of compassion for him. I felt so sad. For just a few seconds he was kicking and banging on the door. Anyway, a graphic example, but obviously he's not working in yukta. It's not yukta karma phalam trakva. Yeah, it's ayukta. Yeah, he's not connected. He is not practicing nishkam karma yoga. That's for sure. He's very, very attached. And people people you can see they're so attached that they will even do unmentionable things to get the result, isn't it? Unmentionable things that we don't want to speak about here, to experience the results of their activities. That's what it said, leads to degradation. Anything else we can glean from this here? And wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. I was trying to pinpoint the verse that Prabhupada paraphrases here in the Bhagavatam, but I couldn't think of it for now. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the results of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality. So Prabhupada's referring to a specific verse from Bhagavatam. If anyone knows that, you can have 10 points. Hare Krishna. All right, no gets 10 points. Hare Krishna. Me included. Yeah, one is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness. But one who's entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace, and that's the secret. And any more mentions here from Keshava Kashmiri. It's a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Anyone heard of Keshava Kashmiri?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell us, Mother Chandravali?
He's the one who came to defeat Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, he was a great.
No, what's
That's correct.
yeah, but he came to Navdeep because he was defeating everybody, and he thought that I can defeat.
Yeah, in
Chaitanya.
philosophical debate, he was
Yes.
touring India and was very proud. And he
Mm.
marched to on horseback with a great following, and he would demand to meet the greatest scholars in that particular area, and they would engage in debate. So anyway, without telling the whole story, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Nimai, young boy, defeated him. Interesting, Keshava Kashmiri gives a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, which I often refer to. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. And I just realized the connection today. I looked up Keshava Kashmiri, so I wanted to know a bit more about him. And a quote came up from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I thought, yes, this is him. It must be him.
Right.
Anyway, he says, attachment to rewards for one's actions is the root cause of bondage to samsara.
Yes.
Root cause. Attachment to the rewards from one's actions. The root cause is something to think about. Yes.
And when he got defeated, Mother Saraswati came in the dream.
Yeah.
Because he felt so bad that how could I be defeated?
Yeah. And let me just check, let me just come out a minute. He is the, for your interest, I've gone right now. Perhaps take too much to get there. But he's one of the acharyas in one of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. Yeah. He becomes an acharya. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, yeah, I'll just read the translation again. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace. It sounds attractive, isn't it? Unadulterated peace. Because why? Because he offers the results of all activities to me. Whereas ayukta, a person who is not in union, ayukta, with the divine, who is instead greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Yeah. Entangled in samsara, entangled in reaction. Entangled because of his bitterness, just like that example I gave of that man who wanted to, was very impatient. Obviously, he's going to become entangled. His anger and bitterness, no doubt he's going to take out on people in the store. He's going to take it. Anyway, you get the idea. Probably his family at home as well, etc. So it becomes entangled.
I was thinking about Duryodhana and Arjun in choosing, like Arjun chooses Krishna. Nothing, though Krishna is not going to fight, Krishna is not going to pick a weapon up or anything. And there's Duryodhana, he's picking all the army, and how much tension he goes through not picking Krishna.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Arjuna's attachment and devotion to Krishna. And yeah, wonderful example. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just picturing, you can just picture how Duryodhana, because Arjuna had first choice, isn't it? Krishna gave Arjuna first choice, go me or my army. So
Yeah.
Duryodhana he couldn't believe it that Arjuna chose one person. He didn't choose his army. He thought Arjuna was insane.
Mm.
The army consists of millions of troops, but yeah, that's a wonderful episode in Mahabharata, isn't it? Wonderful, wonderful.
But from that, we can learn something as well, that when
Yeah.
we make decisions, are we choosing Krishna or something else? You know,
Yeah.
Or, are we choosing like Arjun does, or are we choosing like Duryodhana is choosing?
Yeah, good point. So sometimes we have to become quite reflective because we may cheat ourselves. You know, we think we're choosing Krishna, but really we're not. So we have to think things over once, twice, 3 times. You know, what's my motivation here? What do I really want? Do I really want to please Krishna? But yeah, we should.
Can I give a quick example?
Yes, please.
Like, okay, I have like next week or something, my neighbors, they're really nice, really looks after me so well. Now they've got some kind of a dinner thing going on, and I have the next day I have service. Right, do I choose Krishna or do I choose going to these neighbors who are really nice to me and I do need them? No, but I have to choose Krishna because Krishna will be the neighbor and look after me anyway.
Yeah, you have to make that decision based on your relationship.
Yeah.
There may be an incidents there. It's not always black and white. There may be, it depends on your relationship. It may be better in some circumstances where someone else in that situation, the best thing would be will be to honor the invitation. But it very much depends on the development of the relationship, etc. But yes, I'm sure you're doing the right thing. For sure. All right. Anything else here? This Bhagavad Gita is the work manual for the material world, okay? How to survive in this world, how to act, and what consciousness to be in. Anything from anyone else out there? We have what's becoming a dedicated Bhagavad Gita reading thing here. All right, let's read text 13. So someone would like to read?
Guys, got a hand up.
Okay, Baba Guy, please go ahead and read. Why can't I see your
Hare
name?
Krishna.
Yes.
Sarvakarmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. Yes, sorry. Translation. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Purport. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of the body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to the forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows. Navadvare pure dehi hamso leila yate bahi vashi sarvasya lokasya sthavarasya charasya cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genitals. The living entity in his conditioned stage identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.18. Therefore, a Krishna-conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. So just a couple of points about the last verse. I forgot to mention that text 12, for your interest, happened to be a summary verse of the previous 5 verses. So Krishna is summarizing the principles which he is enunciating. And it mentions the next 4 verses. It's going to answer a question Krishna has already discussed in the 3rd and 4th chapters. Namely, who is the Karta? Who is the doer? The living entity, the Jiva, material nature, Krishna as Paramatma. Yeah. So in the first of, just reading here now, in the first of these 4 verses, Krishna describes the Jivatma's role. Yeah. So I hope that didn't complicate things, but for your interest. So any particular questions or curiosities here about this verse and purple? Residing happily in the city of 9 gates. Yeah. Anyone would like to live happily in a city? Well, in the city of the body, yeah. So there's something I took note of here. And let me just read it, see if we can give us a little further insight. This is from Shuddha Swami. He mentions a person who has not purified their mind through from nishkam karma. Let me just get this right. Yeah, one who is, let's read this. He mentions one who's not, let's just keep it simple, one who's not purified their mind. Yeah. It is not possible for them to renounce actions internally. Yeah. So when an embodied jiva begins to control his nature and mentally renounces all actions. So this is where kind of repeating it again and again, it seems like nishkam karma. Yeah. He mentally renounces all actions. He resides happily in the city of 9 gates, neither working or causing work to be done. What other notes I have here? Okay, let me just read this. The person who is self-controlled and has purified mind by discrimination, renouncing all thoughts and actions that distract from Atma Tattva, is free from false ego. But that's not easily done. You can try it tomorrow. Yeah. Renounce all thoughts and actions that distract you from self-realization. Okay? That means no watching the news, no checking out the YouTube. So renouncing all actions that distract from Atma Tattva is free from false ego. Yeah. So that person can live in the body, can live in a city body contently. You understand what's being explained there? So in other words, if one is not in control of the self, one is not in control of the senses, one doesn't know what's going to happen next because they're living within a city of senses which are demanding attention. You get the picture? Therefore, anything, you could go in any direction, pulled by the senses. So you're not exactly, you cannot be happy within the body because the body is controlling you. You are a servant of the senses. So you're being dragged here and there. Yeah. So as opposed to someone who controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he can be happy within the body and not entangled, neither working. Well, he works, but he's not attached to work, nor causing work to be done. Does that make some is that okay? Any questions upon that?
I was thinking also like chapter 12, who is dear to Krishna. So we try to become dear to Krishna by, being not upset with happiness or distress and, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We will then be able to live in this material body, always thinking of Krishna. And,
Yes.
but like you have to make spiritual progress.
Yes, very good point. And sometimes, I don't know if you have experienced it, sometimes the experience can be quite, you could say, not overwhelming is a stronger word, but it can become quite profound where you're in a situation. It's a passionate situation. You feel the passion going through your mind and body. You want to say something, you want to shout something, but then you decide to not do that. You decide to control your nature. Yeah. And let it flow, or let it go, so to speak. And after that, I've had sometimes you just feel so peaceful. You feel so, why? Because Krishna's very happy with how you didn't react, you could say, let's say, how you didn't react to that situation. Yeah, because we did what the super soul was encouraging us to do. We actually heard the super soul. It was always on our side, Yes, that's a very good point, Mother Chandravali. So,
I used to use that at work. Just
all
tell
right.
you as an example. When I was working, and because I was in charge of a section, so you have lots of issues. So I realized that on a Friday, if we have issues, don't do anything about it. Leave it after the weekend to sort that problem out, and you'll come back and you'll really be in a refreshed state to even think about it, or it'll be all solved by then, or something like that.
Yeah.
So if we can put that in our material, in our spiritual life, that if anybody says something, anybody writes you a text or something, don't do anything for a while. Just leave it. And then you come back to it a day later or whenever, you'll see you'll be feeling different. You'll answer it in a different mood. We have to realize what mood we are in. When somebody said something to you, are you in a mode of passion? Are you in a mode of ignorance? Or are you in a mode of goodness? And then you act accordingly, because then the right thing will come out. I mean, that's what I think, but it doesn't always work. But I'm just saying.
No, it's very, very, very good point, and that's why there is a whole chapter, and it goes further. But one chapter is dedicated by title, called "The Three Modes of Material Nature."
Yeah.
That's chapter 14, and it's described in the beginning of that chapter, the first purport, that of all the chapters so far, this chapter is the most important. Yeah, and before that, we've had the most confidential knowledge, etc., devotional service chapters. But this chapter 14 of the modes of material nature is considered the most important, because without understanding this and cultivating sattva, as Mother Chandravali is saying, you won't understand anything else. Interesting. Yeah. And I just remembered also one of our teachers, one of our spiritual masters, I saw the title of the video. I didn't watch it yet, but it's described. It's titled when the world spits at you, don't spit back. Right? Said it, when the world spits at you, don't spit back. So, quite a title. but the same principle he's mentioning here. So this is what is being described here. Happily residing in a city of 9 gates. Yeah. Yeah. He's not enslaved to the lower nature, to his or her lower nature. That's how we can live happily in the city of this 9 gates. Let me see here. Any notes here? Any questions, anyone, on this? I'm just looking at notes I took down. Yeah. I think I've mentioned these points, yes. Ramanuja mentions, then remaining content, independent from the body, one performs no action as a consequence of being a passenger residing within the body. Yes. Okay. So many lessons to be learned, isn't it, in every sloka of Bhagavad Gita? Yeah.
I was also
Go on.
going to say, when I went through difficulty, and I was thinking, oh, why am I not feeling anxiety? Why am I being still peaceful? Why am I still able to remember Krishna? It's not that I'm advanced or anything like that, but I was just thinking, because if we try and chant attentively, if we try and concentrate on Krishna, he just makes all these things for ready for you. He just makes nice. I don't know how to say, but it makes really nice things ready for you.
Yeah,
You're just not in anxiety. So you're in that body, but you're not so much in anxiety. Oh yes, every now and then you'd have a bit of like, oh, why is this? Why me? Why? But most of the times you'll feel Krishna's presence in your life, and Krishna's and the philosophy, you will be able to put it in practice. Okay, I'm getting this. It's my karma. I've done something. Krishna is showing you all these things as well.
Yeah. Very good. In one sense, it's quite simple. If you follow Krishna's shiksha, if you follow Krishna's instructions, you will perceive the result without a doubt, which is what Mother Chandravali is explaining. So that's why it's good to constantly hear Krishna's shiksha instructions, so we don't forget them. Okay, let's read on. Anybody else? Most devotees are quiet out there today. Only devotees. No, not so many here. All right, let's read on. Oh, we've got 9 minutes. Let's see, 5:14. Okay,
Prabhu, can I?
please, yes.
Na karta varna karmani lokasya srajati pravahu na karma phala samyoga swabhavastu pravartate. Translation: the embodied spirit, a master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Purport: the living entity, as will be explained in the 7th chapter, is one of the energies of or natures of the Supreme Lord, but is distinct from matter, which is another nature, called inferior, of the Lord. Somehow the superior nature, the living entity, has been in contact with material nature since time immemorial. The temporary body or material dwelling place which he obtains is the cause of varieties of activities and their resultant reactions. Living in such a conditional atmosphere, one suffers the results of the activities of the body by identifying himself in ignorance with the body. It is ignorance acquired from the immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and disease. As soon as the living entity becomes aloof from the activities of the body, he becomes free from the reactions as well. As long as he is in the city of the body, he appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor nor controller of its actions and reactions. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. His best solution is to get out of the water by transcendental Krishna consciousness. That alone will save him from all turmoil. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Okay, any immediate questions here or comments? I think we mentioned yesterday, this principle Atma Tattva is very much elaborated in the second chapter. So it has some consequences if we understand we are not the body, then we are not actually, you could say, we are not actually doing anything. We, the soul, no doubt, we desire, so then, but based on that desire, then the body then interacts or moves. But the jiva itself is residing within the body, and he doesn't own the body, nor are we ultimately the controller of his actions as described here and reactions. It's quite a deep thing to
Prabhu,
understand.
there's
Yes.
there is one verse in chapter 13, which is like 30th verse, which says exactly the same thing.
Okay. You can paraphrase it for us, or?
Yeah, sure. So the translation for that is one who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, that person actually sees. Again, as we mentioned yesterday, it's because we relate to the world through the body, etc. It's often missed. It's very subtle. But sometimes we might get insights into this, or just by reading this and discussing it, you get kind of gifted with some insight into, because there's different levels of knowledge. There's two specifically, there's more, but one is Gyan and one is Vigyan. So Gyan is knowledge. Okay, we are not the body. Vigyan is actual insight and revelation of that fact. You have realized knowledge. Yeah. So, yeah, so we're in that's why Prabhupada described in the purple, we are in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. And this ocean, he describes, is tossing him. He has no control over them. Yeah. The jiva is very small. The dimension of the jiva is mentioned, I think, in which chapter is it? 100,000 size of a tip of a hair. Anyone know that chapter where Krishna describes that? Chapter 8, I think.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2, yeah. Right, yeah. So it's very small. Yeah. We're in this big body, we have these big arms, this head and legs. And we're the actual, very small, where the jiva sitting. Where does the jiva reside?
In the heart.
In the heart, yeah. So why
Go
on.
Sorry, I had a different assumption of that.
Yeah.
It's like is it between eyebrows?
No, it can be. Some yogis may rise the life air which surrounds the soul up to that chakra and then to the top of the skull, but it resides within the subtle seat of the heart. Yeah. Why does the heart beat?
Okay.
Why does the heart beat?
It's the soul.
Because of the presence of super soul.
Yeah, super soul. Yeah,
Yeah.
the soul. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Mother Rajka Shaw. She's introducing a more deeper aspect. Yeah, because the super soul, because the power and the jiva's there, which is spiritual. So therefore, boom, boom, boom. When does the heart stop beating? When the super soul takes you out. When you leave. Yeah. So
It's really when my husband was leaving the body, I was like, we were told, okay, anytime now. I was really like watching because I thought I can see a soul going. I was really watching, so engrossed, just watching, I
yeah,
don't even.
it's quite what Mother Chandravali is saying is very good, because it's when you study this subject, when you live your life according to these principles and you're in the presence of someone leaving this world, it's a whole different experience, Obviously, because of some affection there's some emotions you're going through, but ultimately you understand. And as Mother Chandravali was waiting to see the phenomena of the soul leaving the body. But generally, you're gonna ascertain the soul's left by the change in the body. Generally, it's these things on the subtle platform. So, I've been present a couple of times, a few times when persons are leaving this world, and with Atma Tattva, with knowledge of the soul, it is. Can I say it can be? I don't want to use the word interesting because it gives a bit of a, not as if you're a morbid consciousness, you're waiting for someone to die so you can interestingly see the result. No, not like that. But it's very educational. Put it like that. It's very sobering, and it very much gives you faith in the Bhagavad Gita. You can see the whole thing happening as described in Bhagavad Gita, and you know what's happening. I mean, there's no mystery for a devotee or what's happening. If the devotee is expecting it to happen, it's not surprising, and it's not a mystery. It's part of life. As much as birth is part of life, so is leaving this world. Anyway, we're going into Atma Tattva. Hare Krishna. All right, so perhaps we'll pause there. There's a few valuable lessons we've learned again today. Focus of some use. And let's get together next Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll continue with 5:15. Let's just look at the verse. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Okay, so we'll look at that next week. Who is to blame? Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Quick, are you in
Hare
Scotland
Krishna.
tomorrow?
I shall
Really,
be
Prabhu?
in London. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I shall be back next week in London. Hare Krishna.
Tomorrow you're in Scotland, right? Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow I tune in. Yeah, from Scotland. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Praise Manama Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Hare.
Thank you, obeisances. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for listening in. Hare Krishna. Hare